Here is the Honorable Minister. But please, before I begin, Your Excellency the Vice President, please permit me to stand on existing protocol. Thank you. For this opening fireside chat, I have a distinguished woman, a reform-driven leader who has previously served as a special advisor to 2 Nigerian presidents, where she led over 200 business climate reforms through the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council. She's a respected voice in economic policy, trade negotiations, and governance. She's recognized with the National Honor MFR in 2023 and inducted into the MIPAD's Hall of Fame in 2024. She's an academic at heart. She teaches international economic law at the University of Lagos and holds degrees from the University of Lagos, Cambridge, Stanford Law School. So you know the material we're dealing with today. Please put a round of applause for her. The theme of this fireside chat is catalyzing MSME resilience, harnessing digital innovation, expanding market access, and affordable financing in Africa. She'll be giving us a perspective from the national context, and hopefully, with the distinguished guests here, we can scale to our various countries and continent at large. Welcome, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So this is going to be a fireside chat, basically a conversation between the both of us, and hopefully the audience will benefit from this very immensely, as this will set the theme for the rest of the forum. But before we begin, I have a question. How do you, as a Nigerian minister, ensure, because I know Nigeria has made significant strides in trade and investment, what are some policies that the country has taken in unlocking and improving micro, small, and medium enterprises?
That's an interesting question. Your Excellency, the Vice President, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'll start with the Vice President. He's the chair of the Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council, which I had the privilege of leading for about 8 years, which works on business climate reforms across the board, all arms and levels of government, from the federal agencies, over 50 of them, to all state governments, to the National Assembly, the judiciary, and private sector. In the PEBEC, the coordination to deliver reforms is specifically targeted at MSMEs, which are nearly 50% of Nigeria's GDP. The PEBEC also works on large businesses and across various sectors. So just starting in addition to all what the MD of SMEDAN said over here, His Excellency has championed across the board on different categories that target reform across the MSME sphere.
That's very impressive. At this juncture, I'm tempted to say, please, let's give a round of applause to His Excellency, the Vice President of Nigeria. Now, while we're still gaining the momentum, I think it's also keen to mention that I am Nigerian, a proud one, and it's an exciting moment for us to see what the Nigeria Trade and Industry Ministry is doing. In addition to the opening question, I would like to ask, what role do you think government policies should play in creating an enabling environment for private sectors? Because I know at least half of this room are MSMEs, and they're very keen on knowing how is the government creating those spaces to ensure that they're able to scale.
So that question is actually quite similar to your first question, and I'll talk about what the government is doing in addition to what the government should be doing, so I'll layer them together. So I've talked about the PEBEC, and you've heard about the interventions from SMEDAN, and I can speak to the work from the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment. We spend quite a bit of time in addition to focusing on industrial reforms, whether at a large scale or smaller economic zones, to attracting and especially retaining capital into Nigerian investment. So investment retention leads us to working with businesses across the board, from nano all the way to platinum, which are businesses that have a turnover of over $1 billion per annum, and different stratas, the different interventions for those businesses. So retaining investment in the economy speaks to the stabilization that His Excellency Mr. President has been on, whether monetary, whether removal of subsidies, structural adjustments, whether unifying the foreign exchange to make sure there's stability, the tax reforms, the bills are still before Parliament. These are the systemic interventions at the macro level that deliver a stabilized business environment. You would know from the ratings with Moody and Fitch that the international community has already been very pleased with the stabilization and the trajectory that this administration is pursuing. In addition to that, the mobilization of investment. Mr. President, as the Chief Investment Officer of this economy, in 2 years has galvanized over $50 billion of foreign investment announcements, and it's our job at the ministry, through agencies under us such as the NIPC, to track and to make sure that that money comes home. In the area of trade policy, if you want me to go on or if you want me to stop?
I think you can touch on that.
Okay, so in the area of trade policy, we champion AFCFTA, which is squarely within the remit of our collaboration with the African Union, with the AFCFTA's Secretariat. We're digital trade co-champions, and that means that we represent Africa in galvanizing attention, capital, and investment in the digital trade space. And why is Nigeria a digital trade co-champion? It's because that is where Nigerian businesses, particularly MSMEs and our startup ecosystem, are competitive. Over 50% of the unicorns across the African continent are Nigerian extraction. Nigerian businesses thrive in that demography. MSMEs layer a lot of automation and technology in what they do. So Mr. President believed that being digital trade co-champions and leading the continent on that particular agenda speaks a lot to over 200 million Nigerians and where this economy is going.
Thank you very much. And I think while you were speaking, I already hear the synergies between what the ministry is doing and what the agencies under it are also doing, because when Smeaton spoke, he spoke about some of these initiatives. But very specifically, what is Nigeria doing to push single-digit interest loans? I know it's been touched on a couple of times. So what have been some of the challenges, and how is Nigeria looking to solve some of these problems?
So thankfully, you have the Managing Director of Bank of Industry here who also touched on that. I also have the opportunity of working closely with the central bank governor. When you talk about single-digit interest, it's not an issue that you can take alone in isolation. It speaks to balancing inflation, it speaks to shareholders' funds and a lot of things. But the government and state governments, I should also commend state governments who have partnered in terms of matching funds to reduce the cost of capital. And we continue to have different interventions. I believe I saw the MD of Nigerian Export-Import Bank as well, Nexim, also under this ministry, continue to working with businesses to de-risk. We also spend quite a bit of time working with development institutions to make sure, development financial institutions, to make sure that we're able to de-risk some of the transactions, mostly at the larger level, but that also affects the ecosystem. So there are a number of interventions that this administration has led with in terms of making sure that we prioritize cost of capital, affordability of capital, the ease of movement of capital, payment solutions, digital public infrastructure, and all the things that will power the operationalization of the AFCFTA.
Please give her a round of applause. Some of these challenges are not a quick fix, and I think that's one of the message we need to put out there. Many people are really keen about single digits interest loans. We know that this is top of mind for Nigeria and other countries on the African continent, and it's interesting to see what Nigeria is doing proactively to ensure that this comes to fruition. I'm going to ask a very short, sweet question. What sectors do you think are the most promising sectors in Nigeria where MSMEs can quickly capitalize on expanded market access, and what support do you think they require to scale?
Well, the first thing is digital trade, layering all their businesses with technology, with AI, that trajectory. The agribusiness space is a great one. His Excellency is also a champion of that space. Light manufacturing is where Nigeria leads. The country rep of UNDP spoke about the collaboration, the air cargo corridor with Uganda Air. We also with UNDP, released a market intelligence tool that maps where Nigerian MSME goods are in demand in 13 southern and eastern African countries. And so what this does is it gives the market intelligence from snacks like plantain chips to fashion like clothes that we're wearing and which countries are in demand, and then the logistics and trade facilitation to get the goods there. So with light manufacturing, with agribusiness, the creative sector is also doing really well. Services, outsourcing of services, the National Talent Export Program under Mr. President's leadership is also another area. There's also OTNI under the leadership of His Excellency the Vice President. This is outsourcing of business services. Nigeria's GDP is now over 50% services. It's also an area where we're very competitive. And right now, under NATEP, over 2,000 Nigerian youth are already having outsourced business services, and they're earning hard currency from software engineering to different productive jobs. So that's another area and another reason why we go there, because whether it's goods, whether it's services, these are areas, what we need most is productivity and competitiveness.
Thank you very much. So for the MSMEs in the house, if you are still thinking of your business ideas, this is just a free consultation. Now you know the areas that are thriving. And then just before we wrap up, in line with the theme of the 4th AU MSME Forum, what would you say a digitally enabled, regionally connected, and well-financed MSME ecosystem looks like in practice?
It looks like $1 trillion for the Nigerian economy.
Thank you very much. And as this is my last question, I promise. As we conclude, what is one concrete commitment that your distinguished office can make in the next 12 months to advance MSME resilience through the approaches that we've discussed?
We already made it. We inaugurated the Central Coordination Committee for AFCFTA operationalization and domestication in Nigeria. So that means all the regulations, legislation that are needed to empower and enable our MSMEs to export. I didn't finish talking about all the pillars under the FMITI and what we have in store for our stakeholders, but all the coordination needed to empower them to scale and to export across the continent is being well coordinated with all the necessary players in attendance, from customs to SON to everyone, whether NAFDAC, both within the FMITI family and beyond. And so we're delivering a coordinated government of Nigeria response to MSMEs to support them as they go across the continent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was indeed the last question. So please